Hello, beautiful moms. My name is Sharice Walker, and I am beyond thrilled to welcome you to the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. This is a place where we come together to learn, grow, and inspire one another. I am so excited to share my personal journey with you, as well as the personal journey of others, and to show you that anything is possible if you set your heart and mind to it. We are all Unbreakable Mompreneurs, and we are in this together. Welcome to Mompreneurs. This is going to be a podcast about mothers and how they can juggle both their motherhood and entrepreneurship. And even if you're not an entrepreneur, I understand what it's like to be a working mom. So the whole point of this podcast is to give you tips and tricks on what you can do so that you don't feel so overwhelmed and by yourself. Because believe it or not, you're not alone. There are millions of us out there. And so I would love for this to be an opportunity to come together and join forces and unite and give us some positive, uplifting feedback and ideas and stories that can motivate you and just give you that extra boost. So thank you so much for joining my podcast. And today we are going to talk about being a mother and the joys that it brings. So if you are feeling overwhelmed and you're feeling frustrated and you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. And let's be honest, sometimes working is way easier than being a mom. And especially right now, it is the summer months. And so our kids are home with us all day, every day. And so think about some of the things that you're doing and think about as you're starting to feel overwhelmed, stressed, burned out, what can you do to relieve some of that? So when I was a little girl, as my kids will always say, Mom, tell us a story. And I'll say, when I was a little girl. And then I would tell the story. And so I remember as a mom, think back to your childhood and all the different things that you liked and you didn't like. I thought my mom and my dad were really kind of work drivers. There's another word I'd like to use, but I'm not going to. And so, because of that, I just remember us working all the time, and I don't remember us having a lot of fun at times. We obviously went on a lot of vacations. We did things together as a family, but to me, my memory is work, and that's not a bad thing. But from the very beginning, I've learned to be an entrepreneur as we were paper route deliverers. We had 4 different routes, about 400 papers every single day that for 7 years, we'd wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. We'd fold those wonderful papers, and then my brother and I would hop on our bikes and we'd go deliver. When we'd run out, we'd have this bag over us. So on the front, we'd stuff it full, and it was on the back. And so we'd throw them until the front ran out. We'd turn it around, try not to fall off our bikes at the time. And then we'd throw, and then we'd have to run home and load up again and come back. So we had a lot of work, a lot of exercise. We had a lot of things that we did. But it was a lot of fun because in the mornings we got to sit together as a family and talk to each other. So then my family money was tight sometimes. And so we would make like barrette clips or we would make different things. So I think that my introduction to entrepreneurship was then. My parents always had their full-time W-2 employed salaried positions. And my mom usually worked part-time until my last year of high school when she went back to work full-time. And then my dad, he traveled a lot, which is why my mom didn't work full-time so that she could be home with us. But he traveled a lot and was gone quite a bit. And so because of that, money, a 9-to-5 job, it doesn't always pay. We had 4 kids and we were all in activities and different things. So it was tough sometimes. And so growing up, we tried to figure out ways. I babysat a lot, and that's kind of how I paid my way through college. And so I want you to think back of what are some of the things that you did and what got you into entrepreneurship and what made you decide to do that. And if you're struggling with the 9-to-5 and you're having a hard time with making money and you still need some extra side hustles, I have some information that I'll be sharing later on probably a different podcast. But there are so many different opportunities. And so I'm a divorced mompreneur. And so the first marriage, I also wanted that stability and that safety. And so I was also a W-2 and salaried employee. And I remember working 70 hours a week. I'd go to work at 8 in the morning or 7:30 in the morning. I'd come home at about 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And then I'd go back sometimes and work till 3 or 4 in the morning as I started more managerial positions. And so it wasn't fun. It wasn't something, well, I take that back. I loved what I did when it came to my students and my employees, but it was a lot of work and very demanding. And so because of that, I never had the opportunity until later to be able to quit that job when I realized it actually wasn't by choice. Everything happens for a reason. And because of that, it was very interesting that how it all worked out and what we did. And so I ended up becoming a real estate agent. And, we talk about the 70 hours a week, 9 to 5. I work a lot of hours, but it's at home. So I'm able to be home with my kids. Like we're getting ready to go to the trampoline park. So, and it's the middle of the day because we can do that when we're mompreneurs and my kids need to burn some energy. So at first, getting back to my point, was that my parents taught me the importance of hard work. And because of that, and we had to continue and go forward. And I don't think I ever appreciated my mom until I was a mom myself. And I'm sure many of you can relate to that. And so I want you to think about some of the lessons that you've learned from your parents. And I remember, well, when I grow up, I'll never do that, or different things. But one thing I learned, my mom, I think back now, we always had a hot meal. So despite the fact that she worked and she was taking care of us, she had a meal plan. And so when I was a single mom, a week did not go by and with me not knowing what to make for my kids. And I remember my kids didn't really have a choice. That's just how it was. And so in my second marriage, my husband's a little more picky, and so are my daughters from him. And so it's harder to make dinner. But what I realized is I need to take back control, and I need to stop giving them the idea. Like we had stir fry the other night, and for several years they've complained they weren't going to eat that or something. And I'm like, well, here it is. This is what we're going to eat. And they figured out how to eat it. And so those are things that meal prepping is something that is really important, and making sure that so that you're not going to fast food all the time. Because it's not about the convenience. It's now teaching good habits to my kids. And if they think they're used to going to McDonald's, Burger King, or probably shouldn't name all these restaurants, but the fast food restaurants, actually we'll cut that out. If we're not, I want them to know that going to fast food restaurants isn't healthy, and I want to teach them good habits. So because of that, I think that making sure that we have a home cooked meal is an important part of a family. And then making sure that we eat together as a family, because we can be going in 20 different directions. But dinner time, it's been proven time and time again how important it is to have a meal with each other at dinner so that you can talk. There's numerous studies that we found that have proven that children are less likely to drink, they're less likely to do drugs, they're less likely to get themselves in situations because you have to sit down at the dinner table every single night and look at your parents. So your parents can read through you. Kids, if you're listening to this, we can, and we know what you're thinking or doing most of the time, not all the time, but spending time together, they know that they're not on their own and that they have a safe place to come. So meal prepping is something that's important. The next thing I think is important is making sure that your kids have responsibilities. So they need to know what to expect. When my first 4, I think I was way tougher on than my last 2, but we had a chore chart. And so every single week it rotated. So we knew who was in charge of the dishes, who's in charge of the main bathroom, who's in charge of the family room. It was never a question. These are just the things that you had to do. And so we knew who was accountable for those things. So if they wanted to go play with their friends, well, did you get the dishes done? That's your responsibility. So you can go after. So I think that making sure that it actually takes a lot of the burden off of you as well, and it gives them responsibilities and consequences for their actions. The worst thing I think right now is the phone. I am so sad that our kids are growing up at an age where the phone seems to dominate. They're asking, can I play on your phone? Can I play on your phone? Can I play on your phone? Can I watch TV? Can I do this or that? Or a computer? And so making sure that you monitor their time. And numerous studies have also shown that no more than 2 hours a day of media or screen time. And so what I found is when we have not had internet or they haven't had a phone, that they do much better, especially if they get on a phone right in the morning versus later on in the afternoon. They're kind of brain dead. And so making sure that you monitor the screen time. So make sure that you comment in the notes below what has worked for you in these 3 areas. Again, so making sure that you have a meal plan, that you have weekly chores, and that you limit the screen time. I will say that it's been interesting to watch as we go to our pediatrician, and even my younger two, that ADHD, it tends to be a huge thing because of screens. And so and depression. So if you can get kids off of that stuff and get them out and doing something, especially some type of organized sport or activity, and if you can't afford that, just making sure that you're taking time, maybe a half hour, it's a good excuse for you to exercise as well as getting them to exercise. But daily activity is essential to brain development and mental stability. I think that there's a lot of things that are happening in our world that are causing a lot of pressure and influence on our children, greater than I could ever imagine at the time. So as a mom, to give you a little bit of background, I'm a mom of 6 kids. I have 2 special needs boys that I'm happy to report one of them, he seems to be really working his way through that. And then we recently just received a diagnosis for one of my girls about autism as well. So 3 kids with autism, but they're all high functioning and doing well. But that does not mean that it has not been a tough road with some of them. So as we go throughout, I'm sure that you're going to hear some of their stories that I'll share. But I've dealt with some pretty severe depression with my children that have led to actions on their part that I never would have imagined as a mom. And so it can be tough. You know, you grow up thinking my kids are all going to be perfect because I'm going to be the perfect mom. And you realize that not everything always goes your way or as you'd planned. I always planned to be the stay-at-home mom, and I've, with the exception of a couple years, always been the breadwinner. And so feelings of guilt, feelings of doubt, feelings of regret, feelings of, you name it, I've been through that, I'm sure, as you have. And so that is my goal on this podcast, is to try to unite us, to help you know that you're not alone, and that you think there's a perfect family out there. There's not. If you go become a fly on the wall in their house, it'll probably make you feel better about some of the things that you're doing well. So I really want you to walk away from the podcast feeling upbeat, feeling positive, feeling like I have hope and that I can do things. And I don't want you to think that, oh my gosh, now I have to go and I have to do this, and this. One thing better every single day can help a lot. And so I'm going to make it short and sweet, but I hope that as we go through the journey together, that you will know that I'm here for you, and I would love to be your cheerleader and supporter. And as I invite people on the podcast to hear their story and what they did, I hope that you will be able to make sure that you comment and interact and let me know what else you'd like to hear, what you'd like to see. But let us unite. Remember, my beautiful moms, you are unbreakable. Keep shining, pursuing your dreams, and embracing the magic of motherhood. This is Sharice Walker signing off from the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. Have a great day.